Hi, I'm Stu from Hive Mind Automation and welcome to the Hive. In this video, we're going to take a look at this Mirabella Genio Smart LED Strip, and we're going to do two things. We're going to connect it to the Tuya cloud and check it out in there, but then we're going to flash it with Tasmota and see the difference between Tuya and Tasmota, so we can also take better control over it from Home Assistant. So let's get started. So I picked up this LED strip at Kmart for $49 a couple of weeks ago, thinking it would be good to experiment. Looking at the specs of it, it's a 3-meter strip of LEDs with color changing RGB functions and cool white mode at 4000 Kelvin. It does come with a 12 volt 1 amp wall wart power adapter and a little control box, presumably housing the Tuya module. I'm going to take it out of the package there and I'll mute the video so you don't have to deal with the sound of me doing that, but we'll take a look at what's in the pack in just a moment. Okay, so we have in the box the LED strip itself, as I mentioned, the 12 volt 1 amp, that means 12 watt wall wart power adapter, and the control box. We also have this 3M double-sided sticky tape, presumably to mount the control box somewhere, and we have the instructions. So what we can do is I'll take a closer look at the strip itself, and we'll just go to the B camera here. And you can see, or you might be able to see here, that there's this silicon covering over the top of that, which means that theoretically the strip itself should be mostly weatherproof, so you could put this outside. Now the connector here obviously wouldn't be weatherproof, and that's the connector where it connects to the control box, and there's little arrows on the connector so that you can get those lined up the right way. Something else I notice here is if we look at the copper traces on the flexible strip here, we'll see that we've got plus, G, R, B, and W. So what that tells me is that this strip can pretty much only do one color across the entire strip at a time. Whether that's RGB or a mix of the three, or even mixing in some white in there, that should be able to do all of those colors, but it does mean that we can't address individual LEDs separately. And I'll be taking a look in a future video at some projects that will allow us to do that. Now if we look closely at the LEDs, we'll see these slightly yellowed LEDs and then these white ones with the silver traces on them. The yellow LEDs will actually be the white LEDs, and the white ones with the silver traces, those will be the RGB LEDs. So something else I noticed here, and I have this aluminium channel from one of the aforementioned LED projects, is that this LED strip is also the correct width to fit into this aluminium channel, and it comes with a peel back sticky on the back of the strip as well. So now that we've looked at the strip itself, I want to open up the control box so that we can see what's inside. So I've got my trusty flat bladed screwdriver here. I'm just going to pry this open, try and keep in frame. Okay, and that is the inside of the unit, and we can see the Tuya module here, and we've got a Tuya module model number of TYWE3S, and I'll take a look at the data sheet for that in a moment to figure out the pinouts for when we come back later and flash this with Tasmota. Now looking at this, it should be fairly easy to get some solder onto those pins to then flash it with Tasmota later on. What I'm going to do is set this up in the Tuya Smart app. We'll take a look at it set up in there, and then following on from that, we will try to flash it with Tasmota and take a look at it. And we'll compare the two, and then hopefully that will help you answer the question to flash or not to flash. Now, I mentioned that the LED strip itself has 5 distinct conductors, the RGB, W, and positive conductors. That does mean that the LED strip itself is not particularly smart without this control box. You could theoretically just apply power to the correct 2 pins here and drive the LED strip without this control box. But we'll take a look in a future video at how you can make your own version of this with individually addressable LEDs. And that then opens up the possibilities for more effects lighting on that single strip, where you can have multiple colors and some LEDs on, some LEDs off, etc. The other thing to note about this particular strip, if we take a close look again, is you'll see these little copper traces and the black line in between there. Now, if you wanted to shorten the strip or make it work better around a corner, you can cut it at this particular point and then solder connectors between these pads together that will then allow those tight corners or a shorter strip. I do notice that the cut points are every 6 LEDs on here, and as I mentioned, you've got the RGB and the white LEDs are separate on here. They're not a single LED unit. So what I'm going to do now is plug everything in, and then we'll pop over to my iPhone and we'll set up the strip in the Tuya Smart app. Okay, so we've just powered it on and we can see that the strip is flashing the white LEDs, which I'm assuming means that it is in pairing mode. I should probably refer to the quick start manual, but I'm going to open up the Tuya Smart app on my phone. Okay, great. So we are signed in now. You'll notice that a bunch of my lights are offline, and that's because I have flashed them with Tasmota, so I can remove some of these items, and I'll just do that now. I still haven't flashed the power board. I might do that in another video too, but honestly it's not really bothering me at the moment, so I'm not too worried about it just yet. Okay, so now I'm going to tap the plus button in the top right hand corner, and I'm going to look through here for lighting, and we can see that we've got strip lights in here. I think that's what I want. Let's just double check that there's nothing else in here. Yeah, strip lights, Wi-Fi, and we'll connect to the Wi-Fi there and click next and confirm the light is blinking, and next. And it's trying to find the device. Okay, cool, and it's given it a name of Genio Smart Lighting. We can change that name if we like, and we'll just call it Genio LED Strip, and we'll hit save, and we'll put it in the dining room. So we'll hit done. And it's saved, and it looks like that percentage counter there may have been it updating the firmware on there, so we'll have to check that out a little later. Now it says that it is currently on 1%, and I'll just grab the end here, and we've got 2 cameras here today, so we'll be able to do some work with that. But I'm going to turn the brightness up to 100%, and that's pretty good. It's not super bright, but it would be pretty good for some kind of mood lighting around the house, and we're possibly going to be looking at putting it under the bar, which is behind me. We can also tap this color at the top here, and it's gone straight into red, and we can go to green, and we can go to blue, and all sorts of colors in between. And if I kind of grab the color wheel and move around, it is fading between those colors as well. It looks like there's a bit of a saturation effect there as well. No, that's a saturation effect. And interestingly, with that saturation all the way down, it's trying to do white with the RGB LEDs rather than the white LEDs, and it's very, very blue dominant. We've got the brightness here as well, and it goes down to 1% properly. It looks like we can create scenes, so we've got nighttime, we've got reading, we've got working, we've got leisure, soft, colorful, and if that is that, okay, yep, so that's that is cycling through different colors, and there's a little bit of white in there in one of those colors there as well. We've got dazzling, and we can change the speed here as well, and also go and change the flash mode. And if I change it to breathe, what happens there? And submit, I need to submit that. Yeah, there we go. So that's cycling through. So we've also got a timer here. We can turn it on or off after a period of time, and schedule for on or off there as well. Let's bring that speed down, and I'll submit that change again. There we go. And we can just turn it off and on. I'll bring that back to white, and I'll bring that brightness down a bit. So that's the Tuya Smart app. Now, now that we have taken a look at it in the Tuya Smart app, let's see if we can get it to work with Home Assistant. Now, I've created a shortcut in my terminal here on macOS to launch into our demo instance of Home Assistant, and it's #test, and I'll cover off in a future quick tips video how to do that in your environment. So I've just typed in #test. So now that we're in Home Assistant, I'm going to go to Configuration, Integrations, and we have Tuya here, and I'm going to click on the three-dot stack here and click Reload, and we've now got 10 devices here listed and 7 entities. So that's good. It means it's found more stuff. So I'm going to go back to the overview, and I'm going to scroll all the way down to light, and we should have, there it is, Genio LED Strip. So if I grab this strip and I turn it off, it turns off. And if I click on the Genio LED Strip logo here, and I can drill in, and I can turn the brightness down or up. Now, interestingly, it's not showing me the RGB functions, and I suspect that that is a problem with the Tuya Smart integration for this particular item. So that is something that we're going to solve by flashing it with Tasmota. So that's the integration in Home Assistant with Tuya. Now let's take a look at flashing the unit with Tasmota, and I'm going to pause the video there. We're going to head out to the workshop and heat up our soldering iron. Okay, so we're out in the workshop, and I've just got the module out here because we don't need the LED strip or the power brick to do this work. Now, something I didn't mention inside is that this unit does have a little push button on the back, and you can access that from the back of the connector there. I'm not sure what that does. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to the laptop again, and I'm going to take a look at the Tuya developer web page, and I've got the details for this unit. So if we look closely here, we have a TYWE3S module, and that's both here and here. And over on the Tuya developer page, I have the pinout diagram for the TYWE3S module. And if we look at here, so this is the front of the board, this is the back of the board. So we have TX and RX are on the when you're looking at the back of the board, TX and RX would be these two here, so the top two on the right. We have a bunch of GPIO pins here, including GPIO 0, which should be, what have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4 from the bottom. So 1, 2, 3, 4 from the bottom should be GPIO 0 right there. We've got our ground pin here and our VCC or 3v3 pin over here. So the soldering iron is nice and hot. I'm going to get some pins soldered onto this unit, and we are going to get this flashed with Tasmota. So I'll grab my iron and some solder. Okay, so we will grab my red pin here, which is our VCC. Okay, that's VCC. Grab ground pin, another ground pin on GPIO 0. We have RX and TX on the top. Now, like in my previous video, I am using these pins. I've tinned them, used some flux and then tinned them with some solder so that they would connect directly here. I've found that they are far easier to work with in that way. I also have this bridge connector here. This is bridging my ground plane, so I can quickly disconnect the GPIO 0 pin from this ground plane. Now I'm going to head back over to the laptop, and I'm going to plug in my USB to serial converter. There we go. So that is powering up, and we've got the GPIO 0 connected to ground as well. So we should actually get this into flashing mode. Now back over on the laptop, I'm going to open up another terminal. I'm going to start up Tasmotizer. I've also created an alias for Tasmotizer on here. So we'll launch that and we'll refresh. We're connected to TTY USB serial 14340. I'm going to save the original firmware. My guess is that it's going to be a 1 megabyte flash, but we'll find out in a minute. We're going to, as usual, use the release, and it's going to download that Tasmota bin. It's not a self-resetting device. We're not using a Node MCU or a WeMOS, and we want to erase it before flashing. So I will click Tasmotize, and it will get started on connecting and downloading the backup of this unit. Okay, great. So the backup's been taken. We will power cycle the unit, and I'll just unplug the USB key and plug it back in to power cycle the unit. We'll give it a second, and then I'll click OK, and it's going to start erasing the device and then writing Tasmota to the device. Okay, great. So the process is finished. We can power cycle the device again, but this time I'm going to disconnect the ground pin on GPIO 0, and I'm going to unplug and then plug in the USB key. And what I'll do as well is I'm just going to, on my laptop, we'll head over to our home folder, and we should see in here we've got this backup bin, so today's date and the time, and the backup bin. That is the original Tuya firmware from this device. So if we needed to return it back to the settings that we had before we flashed anything on here, we could restore this binary file back to this unit, and it would be just a standard Mirabella Genio smart LED strip. So this should have booted up by now, and I'm going to click on the Wi-Fi logo here. I'll click on other networks, and we see we have this Tasmota 1D4453. So I am going to take a screenshot of that, and I'm going to connect to Tasmota, and we're going to set up Tasmota on this device. We're going to scan for Wi-Fi networks. We're going to use the force, and I'm going to type in the password for that network, and we're going to save. This is now going to restart the device. It's going to take a couple of moments, and then we should be able to find it on our network. And what we will do is open up LAN scan. I'll just close these other windows here, and I'm looking for Tasmota 1D4453. So Tasmota 1D4453. So we are on 192.168.1.108. So let's open Chrome. We'll go to 192.168.1.108. And there we have the unit. So as always with anything Tasmota, we need to do some configuration because this is pretty simple right now. So I happen to have found the Blackadder template already for this unit, which is the Mirabella Genio RGB and CW or cool white strip, and the model reference is this here. You can search the Blackadder templates repository using this model number. It is above the barcode on the back of the packaging. I'm going to copy this template. We'll go over to the Tasmota window. We'll go to configuration, configure other. We're going to the template here, and I'm pasting that template in. We're going to tick activate, and we're going to give it a name of LED strip. LED strip. In fact, I might call it dining LED strip. And we're just calling it dining LED strips so that I can distinguish it between that and other LED strips that I have around the house. We'll save that configuration. The unit's going to reboot again in a moment, and then we will come back, and we need to set up MQTT on this unit so that it knows the MQTT broker, and it's actually already come back up. That restarted a whole lot quicker than many of the other Tuya units that I have used in the past, which is fantastic. So we'll go again to configuration, configure MQTT, and I'm going to type in the host name, which is 192.168.120. So just the IP address there, and we're going to hit save, and then it should start showing up in Home Assistant once this reboots because of the Tasmota integration in Home Assistant. It does some auto discovery on the MQTT service. So we'll close that. It looks like it's already back up, which is really quick. That is quicker than any of the other units I've ever used. It's really mind-blowing how fast that is. So we had Genio LED strip through the Tuya integration. I'm going to refresh Home Assistant, and we will scroll down here, and we should have dining LED strip, which we can see there, and we could turn it on and off, but it's not going to show us anything because we're not connected to anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the connections for the serial flashing, put it back in the casing, and then we'll head back into the dining room and take a look at that as it works now. Okay, so now that we have Tasmota installed, I'm going to plug this back in and hopefully not let the magical blue smoke out. So we will plug that in there and plug this back in, and the arrows pointing to each other. And if this does blow up, you'll get this on camera here. So we'll turn on the power. Didn't blow up, so that's a good sign. So we'll head back over to our browser, and we have the Tasmota site here, and I'll quickly refresh that, and we see it should be on. So let's toggle, and it's turning on, and we can turn the brightness up, and it is turning up, which is fantastic. We'll set that there. Change some colors around. Okay, that's pretty good. Something I'm noticing though is that the white LEDs are not coming on. So that is something a little bit weird possibly with this configuration. I'm going to try the button. Okay, the button is a toggle to turn the unit on and off, and so we've got our colors through there. I'm going to pop back over to Home Assistant though. I'm going to scroll down here, and we see that we've got the dining LED strip, and if I click on here, we now have the proper control over the unit. And if we click on white, we get white. If I turn this white value all the way up, now we get the white LEDs turning on. So the white LEDs are working. There's just something strange with the way that works through the web interface for Tasmota. And we have brightness control, and that's working really well. We've got red, blue, and green. And we can use effects here as well, the same effects that we have on our LED downlights, and as you can see, it is the same right across the whole strip. So that's now working really well through Home Assistant using Tasmota. So pretty much straight away I can say that I'm happy that flashing it with Tasmota actually resolved the issues that we saw with the Tuya Smart integration. So that is the Mirabella Genio RGB and cool white LED strip. I think it's pretty great. There's a lot of great things about this. For the price, it's actually really good. There's no issues with the build quality, and once I flashed it with Tasmota, the integration with Home Assistant is seamless. It's great even if you just want to continue to use it with the Tuya Smart app and you don't want to go through the rigmarole of flashing it with Tasmota. The control box is really easy to get into if you do want to go down the path of flashing it, and you have a reasonable soldering iron to get on there and you know what you're doing with a soldering iron. The price at $49, I think it's maybe a little bit steep for an LED strip that doesn't have individually addressable LEDs, and we'll actually take a look at a DIY project in the not too distant future where you can use individually addressable LEDs and get much better effects lighting. They are weatherproofed though, which means that this can quite easily go outside, maybe under the eaves or something like that if you wanted to do some effects lighting outdoors. That's all for the Mirabella RGB and cool white LED strip. I do hope that this video has helped you in your home automation journey. And if you liked this video, please hit the thumbs up button. And if you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing. And when you do, make sure to hit that bell notification icon so you get an alert when I release new videos. Lastly, I want to mention that my videos are not sponsored. So if you like what I'm doing here and you want to help to support the channel, there is a Buy Me a Coffee link in the video description below. If you do decide to contribute through that Buy Me a Coffee link, all of those proceeds go back into making more and better content for you to enjoy. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm Stu from Hive Mind Automation. and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.